In the book The History of the American Revolution by Gordon S. Wood, Chapter 1 The Origins of the Revolution provides an overview and analysis on how America's independence from Britain was achieved through a series of events that began in 1763 with British victory over France in North America. This chapter examines various factors such as economic grievances, political tensions between colonists and imperial authorities, religious differences among settlers, cultural clashes between Native Americans and Europeans, which all contributed to rising discontentment amongst colonial citizens leading up to revolution. It also looks at some key figures who played important roles during this period, including Benjamin Franklin, whose diplomatic efforts helped secure French support for American cause, Thomas Paine's influential pamphlet Common Sense, which galvanized public opinion against monarchy, George Washington's leadership skills throughout war effort, John Adams' role as one main architect behind Declaration Independence, etc. In conclusion, it can be said that while there were many causes contributing towards revolutionary movement, ultimately what united people together was their shared commitment towards achieving freedom from oppressive rule imposed upon them by a distant government located across Atlantic Ocean. Chapter 2 of Gordon S. Wood's The History of the American Revolution examines how a series of events in 1763 to 1775 led to an inevitable revolution between Britain and its colonies in America. It begins with the end of the 7 Years' War, which left Great Britain deeply indebted but also victorious over France for control over North America eastward from Mississippi River. This victory was followed by several measures taken by British government that were seen as oppressive or unfair towards colonists, such as taxation without representation, restrictions on colonial trade and manufacturing, quartering troops among civilians during peacetime, etc., all leading up to increased tensions between them, culminating into open rebellion against their mother country after Lexington and Concord Incident, April 19, 1775. In conclusion, it can be said that these various factors combined together created a situation where war became unavoidable due to irreconcilable differences between two sides, despite attempts at reconciliation made through negotiations like Stamp Act Congresses or olive branch petitions sent out by Continental Congress. In Chapter 3 of The History of the American Revolution by Gordon S. Wood, he discusses how the War for Independence began in 1775 and lasted until 1783. He explains that it was a long struggle between Britain and its 13 colonies, which eventually resulted in America's victory over Great Britain. In this chapter, Wood examines various aspects such as military strategy, political maneuvering on both sides during the conflict, economic factors influencing each side's decisions throughout the course of events leading up to full-scale warfare, including taxation without representation, issues with Parliament from British rule prior to hostilities breaking out at Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, April 19, 1775. Additionally, Wood looks into why some colonists remained loyalists while others became revolutionaries fighting against their former mother country England, and also explores what role foreign nations played, France, in aiding America's cause towards freedom from English tyranny, ultimately resulting in an independent United States of America after 8 years hard-fought battles ending October 19, 1781, when Cornwallis surrendered his army at Yorktown, Virginia, thus concluding the War for Independence. In Chapter 4 of The History of the American Revolution by Gordon S. Wood, he discusses how a new republic was created in America after independence from Britain had been achieved. He explains that this process began with the Declaration of Independence and continued through to 1787, when the Constitution was ratified. In between these two events, there were several important steps taken which helped shape what would become known as the United States. Firstly, state governments were formed. Secondly, Articles of Confederation established an initial form for national government. Thirdly, Congress adopted measures such as taxation and foreign policy initiatives. Fourthly, Shays' Rebellion highlighted weaknesses within existing governmental structures, leading to calls for reform at both local and federal levels. 50 delegates met in Philadelphia during summer 1787 where they drafted a constitution based on principles outlined by James Madison's Virginia Plan. It included separation powers among three branches, executive/legislative/judicial, plus checks and balances system designed to prevent any one branch becoming too powerful or oppressive towards citizens' rights, etc. Sixth step involved ratification process whereby 9 out of 13 states needed approval before document could be implemented. Eventually all agreed except Rhode Island, who joined later once certain amendments added guaranteeing individual liberties like freedom speech, press, religion, assembly, petition, trial, jury, habeas corpus, protection against unreasonable search, seizure, double jeopardy, self-incrimination, cruel, unusual punishment, excessive bail, fines, etc. Finally, chapter ends noting importance role played George Washington presiding over Constitutional Convention, then being elected first President U.S. under its provisions, thus setting stage modern democracy nation today. Chapter 5 of Gordon S. Wood's The History of the American Revolution focuses on how the Revolution was ultimately successful in achieving its goals and establishing a new nation, despite facing numerous obstacles along the way. The chapter begins by discussing some key figures who played an important role in securing victory for America, such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin, among others. It then goes into detail about various battles that were fought during this period, including Saratoga, Yorktown, and Trenton, which all contributed to eventual success against Britain's forces. Additionally, it looks at other factors like economic issues faced by both sides throughout their conflict, as well as diplomatic efforts made between them after 1783, when peace negotiations began taking place, with France playing a major part here too due to their support given earlier on during wartime operations from 1778 onwards until final independence had been achieved 2 years later, 1781. Finally, there is discussion around what happened afterwards, namely how Americans went about creating institutions necessary for running newly formed United States government, while also dealing with internal divisions caused mainly because different states wanted more autonomy than federal authorities would allow them, so tensions arose over these matters leading up towards Constitutional Convention held Philadelphia summertime year 1787, whereupon Constitution itself got ratified, thus providing framework upon which modern-day U.S. operates today under same documents still being used since inception back then, almost 230+ years ago now. Chapter 6 of Gordon S. Wood's book The History of the American Revolution examines how the legacy and consequences of this momentous event have shaped America in its formative years, as well as to present day. The chapter begins by discussing how Americans were able to create a new nation out from under British rule with their newfound freedom and independence. However, it also notes that many aspects such as slavery remained unchanged despite these changes. It then goes on to discuss some key figures who helped shape early U.S. history, including Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and Alexander Hamilton, whose ideas about democracy would become integral parts of modern-day society today. Additionally, Wood looks at other important events which occurred during this period, such as Shays' Rebellion, which highlighted issues surrounding taxation without representation or consent from citizens leading up until ratification for the Constitution in 1788, an act seen by many historians as having been essential for creating stability within newly formed United States government system. Finally, Wood concludes his discussion noting that while there are still debates over what exactly constitutes Americanness, due largely part because different interpretations can be made depending upon one's perspective, ultimately he argues that regardless, all agree is owed much thanks those brave individuals fought hard to ensure our country could exist free tyranny oppression. In conclusion, Chapter 6 provides readers insight into just why revolution was so significant not only time but even now when we look back, reflect upon impact had both past future generations alike.